Today, I'm very proud of myself.
We do not have time for this kind of silliness.
I've accomplished something that nobody else has been able to accomplish.
We got better stuff to do.
Hi folks, I'm Alexander Trowbridge. Welcome to the 2012 Dispatch. Now, normally we like to keep our sections separate at Politico, but the White House and the 2012 Trail collided in a big way today, with President Obama releasing his long-form birth certificate after pressure from none other than the surprise leading GOP contender, Donald Trump. To help us suss this out, we're joined by Politico's Maggie Haberman, who's up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire with Donald Trump. And back at home, I'm joined by Andy Barr. Maggie, we could see the feeds of Donald Trump, but you were much closer. How big was the smile on his face today?
I couldn't tell which was bigger, the smile on his face or the puff of his chest. He was really, really, really pleased, and it was interesting. I mean, there was a lot of anticipation before he came into the hangar because, it was braking for the half an hour before he arrived. There was also some bad weather that slowed him down, that the White House was putting out this birth certificate and that Obama himself was going to speak about it. And everyone was very curious about how Trump would handle this, but he pivoted off of it. He took it as if it was a meatball, and he swatted it very hard and thumped his chest and said, I accomplished something that no one else was able to do, that the Clintons couldn't do. Look at what I did. And he also left himself some wiggle room, that this could, still not quite be real, and said, well, I certainly hope it's real. We have to look at it and see. I don't quite know that he knows where to go from here on this now. He expressed both tremendous pride in making this happen and also slammed the media repeatedly that we keep asking him about it.
Yeah, Maggie, it's Andy. I was wondering, so he keeps complaining and whining that we never ask him about China or this other stuff. Is there any evidence that people actually care what he thinks about China?
Well, there certainly is evidence.
I'm serious, because he jumped up on the birther issue, and then what now?
Right. I mean, look, he does talk. In fairness to him, he was talking about China. His message prior to planting a flag firmly in the GOP fringe with the birther issue was he began at CPAC by talking about China and talking about trade. This was his calling card, was the country's finances and jobs and being a job creator and this image of him as a businessman. However, ever since he started talking about the birther issue, he's been raising it rather actively on his own. It has not really required much prodding from reporters. And any politician knows that there is a way to not answer a question if you don't want to. That is not in Donald Trump's DNA. He just responds to whatever is put in front of him, and he truly believes that what he says is right, regardless of whether the fact that facts might not comport with it.
I was going to say too, he kind of seems to exist on the craziness that exists in the cable news sphere. What issue is out there now for him? Because I just don't see. China and trade is something that's going to grab the kind of headlines that he wants all the time.
No, I agree with you completely. I mean, it is certainly an issue that will resonate with some people. But it was very, he just visited a plant, a factory in just outside of Portsmouth, and he spoke to workers. He toured it. He spoke with about 50 workers, but he wasn't speaking with. He gave a speech. He tends to speak at. He doesn't really speak with people. Which is a bit of a problem when you're running for president, if you're running for president. And he talked a lot. He talked a lot about trade. In fact, he used the phrase "China is raping this country." I might be paraphrasing on parts of it, but "raping" is a direct quote. And I spoke to some workers afterwards and asked what they thought of his message, and a couple of them said, Al, I don't really know that he has the experience to deal with China, and I don't think that's really his area. He knows about domestic. So this idea that what's resonating with him, I think, is largely, as Jonathan Martin wrote recently, I think very correctly, that he is taking this fight to Obama. But I'm not really clear, I think you're right, what the fight continues to be once he's not really questioning Obama's legitimacy.
Now, before this news conference, there was other major breaking news this morning regarding the Department of Defense and the CIA, with Panetta moving over to the Department of Defense and General Petraeus getting picked to lead the CIA. Does this completely overshadow that? I mean, it was President Obama who decided to release his birth certificate today. Didn't he know he was
Correct.
Completely changing the conversation of the day?
I have to say I was very surprised that the White House did what they did. I think that doing what they did was not the surprise. Let me rephrase that. The timing of it was very strange. On the one hand, they knew Trump was here and they knew they could drive it. And yes, Bernanke had some bad economic news, and that has certainly been overshadowed today. But the reality is that the White House set the tone on this, and there was, certainly some chatter among reporters saying this is a sign that we're none of us is really kind of doing our jobs at this point. And I think there was something to that in terms of the outsized focus on Trump. But in terms of the larger point, this is the President of the United States. He came out and said it himself. This was not just issuing a statement. So I think on the one hand, it reflects the White House's clear concern in what they were seeing, not just in public polling, it's obviously reflected in their own polling, that the birther issue, which never really went mainstream in this way in the 2008 campaign, was clearly settling into the sediment of the electorate, not just among Republicans, but also among independents who are crucial, and creating the sense that he is something, other than us. And that's the thing you hear a lot among Republicans. But I do think that if what they wanted was to escape freak show theater, this was not the way to do it, because this basically created a scenario where you had Donald Trump being carried live on every cable channel, and then the president talking after that. And that was not a great option. Maybe
they could go on a debate show of some kind. They could bring back Crossfire.
That's right. Exactly. Well, exactly. I mean, the word that a lot of people are using to describe, and this is including Democrats, to describe the White House's decision to do this is that this is something of a low point.
That's probably definitely true. I mean, did you ever imagine that we'd be doing, seriously, can you imagine a few months ago if we had said, Donald Trump would be beating the drum on something that Obama would actually have to get up and stand for? Even leaving out the birther thing, just the idea that we've gotten to this point is just so bizarre. It's just so crazy, right?
All of this is crazy. All of this is the reality showing of our politics, no question.
Well, Maggie, Donald Trump will continue his tour of New Hampshire, and I know you'll
we will
continue
informed. Along with him.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Don't have too much fun up there, Maggie.
Thanks for having me. See you.